Welcome back to another episode of Rebuilding the Palisades podcast, hosted by DSI. I'm Zach Fagan, and today we have Dulcie Horwitz in. Thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. So you're the principal of Horwitz Architecture and Design. Really appreciate you joining us today, and I'd love to know a little bit about your background. How did you initially get into architecture? Was there did you know that this was going to be your career path, when you were a child, or was there a catalyst that happened somewhere along the way that started you on this journey?
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I think this topic is incredibly relevant. I mean, I'll get to my background in just a second, but obviously our community is so heavily affected by this. But there's a phrase that I always remember: you never know what the bad things will be good for. So I'm trying to remain optimistic about the fact that there could be a lot of really good that will come out of the rebuilding of both, not only the Palisades, but also, in the Pasadena area. So the Eaton area. But anyway, having said that, how did I become an architect? Because somehow that's way more fascinating, right? Well, I was born in 1970. I was born in 1970, so I'm a 70s baby. And it was a combination of things. So I was born in a tiny little town in Illinois, and right at the northern boundary of Illinois, there is a property called the House on the Rock. And it is like as if Frank Lloyd Wright and Tadao Ando and Bruce Goff had a love child. Now, if you even know who those, and I visited this place, and it's wild because it's connected to an amusement park. So you go through this weird underground amusement park and think like 1975, 1976. Like, this is not like Epcot Center or anything like that. And you get to this house that's built into a cliff, and it even has, and it blew my eyebrows right off my forehead. And I was so young when it happened. Then fast forward, oh, come on, James Bond. Every single James Bond movie, the layers, the evil layers, you've got John Lautner's houses in so many of those. So when you combine and also I grew up in a small town in Illinois where almost all of the houses I grew up with were built in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. So you're talking basements, attics, widow's walks on the top, turrets, all these Harry Potter, rooms underneath the stairs kind of thing, hidden doorways. So when you have this weird Victorian thing with this 1970s James Bond, the water thing that came out of, Spy Who Loved Me, these things burrowed into the back of my head. And I got derailed. I was an actress for a while. And then I was about 3 years into that. It's just, that life was just not for me. And I was interested in architecture before that. So then I went back to architecture and, God, it's been over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting story.
Yep.
Very cool. So, having over, 30 years of experience designing homes in Southern California, what keeps you inspired to innovate?
Oh, to innovate. Well, innovation is an interesting concept. I think what keeps me inspired is rethinking the roots that I just told you and thinking about how they affect or are relevant today. So the things I've always been interested in residential architecture are alcoves, hidden spaces, like I was saying, attics, basements, like these, anything that provides a story as you walk through a hearth. If you've ever heard of Gaston Bachelard's Poetics of Space, it is 1000% that. So I'm very inspired by that. As far as innovation goes, anything that can promote the Hobbit house dug into the side of the hill with the green roof, but somehow also the James Bond, Tony Stark glass wall. Those things, I'm still slobbering over any of those sorts of things. Now, and you speak of them as innovation, I'm not sure how brand new those things are. It's kind of more like, how can we make them prescient today? How can we make those things valuable today? And of course, with all the environmental stuff that we have going on, of course they are, right? So those are the things that get me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's true that there isn't anything new and that there are just new ways of presenting what's already been done?
It is interesting that when I was in school, there was a phrase that was going around where they said, 98% of all ideas are unoriginal, and the other 2%, most of them are crap.
That's one way of
So,
putting
I
it.
mean, but then if you look at some people's work, I know this makes me maybe pedestrian or banal, but if you look at Frank Lloyd Wright's work and when he was doing it, he definitely broke the mold on a bunch of different things, right? And so I think it's possible to come up with something brand new, but I think that there are archetypal themes that when something is really successful, it strums a certain note that reverberates on very old ideas. Now, you might have a fresh take on it, or even just switching over like a degree or so to the right or left. But I think the things that are truly, that are truly moving and touching and relevant are the things that have the old themes. Does that answer
Yeah,
your question?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So your firm's won multiple Architizer awards. What do you think set those projects apart?
Well, the mobile greenhouse was, Tom Fruin is a stained glass artist, and Olson Kundig is an amazing architectural firm, and Olson Kundig has this project called, I think it's called Chicken. Oh shoot! This is what happens when you turn 55. But it's called Chicken Retreat or Chicken something. I can't remember what it is, but it's this wonderful cinder block house, and one entire wall of it is a big, huge glass wall that you can actually manually rotate, and it opens up onto whatever sea or lake that's in front of, and it is amazing. And Olson Kundig, so the inspiration for the mobile greenhouse came from Tom Fruin. He's a stained glass artist that still does to this day. He's really talented. Takes water towers in New York and makes them stained glass. Oh my God, it's just so amazing. It's beautiful. So I was very much inspired by that and also by Olson Kundig's work, and we just decided to make our own art installation. So it's very unique. I think the thing that makes it award worthy is aesthetics, the manual technical part, and the things that I think, again, if we're talking about archetype and the things that connect with people, Olson Kundig's work. If with everything that is so invisible these days, all the Lutron, all the Creston, all the everything, you don't really even know how it's working. There is, not everybody, but there is a whole group of people out there that are hankering for something that is manual.
Yes, there are.
Yes. Vintage even.
Yes.
Like something that harkens back to that industrial age when things weren't invisible, right? And you could actually move and change things manually. So I think the mobile greenhouse is, a combination of art and also that sort of very manual harkening back to like the industrial age thing.
Yeah, very cool. Super cool. Can you describe a project where you took a very unconventional approach that ended up really delighting the client?
That's a good question. Well, I will say that in the last few years, we've developed a new interviewing method.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a front end process.
Yes. And it's on the very front end, and it's been the last 2 to 3 years. It's an interview process based on Edward de Bono's six thinking hats method. And that is actually, believe it or not, a guy from like the 60s or 70s. I think Mad Men when I read this book, you know what I mean? And it's based on getting all the guys around the conference table to be able to think about things from all the different points of view. So the first hat is factual. Everyone has to think about things factually. So when I interview my clients, let's think about what the needs are, whatever. Then we have to think negatively. That's the black hat, like critically. So what could be going wrong here? What's the risk? Whatever. Usually in a couple, there's one that's, kind of a dreamer and creative. And then the other one is sweating the bills. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
They're the analyst and they're sweating. So it's my job, oftentimes as an architect, to navigate the conflicting needs between the two of them to give them a successful project. So I was very drawn to this method because it makes everybody, all the stakeholders that are involved in the project, have to think about their project from all different points of view.
See it through all the different lenses.
So it's not just, Dulcie that's going to be positive and happy-go-lucky. Howard has to be, happy-go-lucky today too. But it's not just Howard that has to think critically and about risk. Dulcie also has to think about, and you go through all of that. And at the end, I give them a pie chart that has their top 3 priorities. And so it has been revolutionary for me lately to be able to give a client the readout of the whole interview with the 2 pie charts, because most of the time they don't even really see what the top 3 important things are to each other. And I give them, okay, let's say for me, let's say the aesthetics would be the number 1. Number 2 would be, some sort of secret space. And number 3 would be openness to the nature or whatever. Then I would give percentages to each too. And oftentimes between the 2 of them, there is some overlap, but it's so important for people who are engaging in a project, whether it's commercial or residential, to be able to honor and really see and feel seen about what their top priorities are. And that changes, it flushes so many things. I mean, one of the questions that I love that I've started asking is, give me your favorite memory from your childhood home.
Oh, interesting question.
Yes, that's in the green hat. So there's all these different weird questions you ask there because you're thinking about it like out of the box. And it is amazing what you will learn, because oftentimes too, there's one client that is very loquacious and speaks a whole bunch, and then there's the quiet one. And you need to make sure that you understand the quiet one,
Of course.
So that new interviewing method, I really wish I had done it decades before. Because, like I said, it doesn't even matter if it's commercial or residential. The results that I get from that and the kind of understanding and consensus that it brings to the table before the project even starts, fantastic.
Yeah, and it probably goes a long way toward managing expectations, right?
Even amongst the both of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Love that approach.
Yeah.
So, as a woman principal in a very, male-dominated field, have you seen the industry change during your career, and what are some of the challenges that you faced?
First of all, 100% I've seen it change. When I first started going out in the field, it was like mid-90s, and I would only be the only chick ever anywhere, right? And the weird thing about that and the wonderful thing about that is as soon as you were good at your job, it really didn't matter anymore. And I mean that. I mean, sexual politics are always going to be there. Always, always. But people just want you to do a good job. I mean, occasionally, I would come across somebody who was, misogynist or whatever, but you come across them in your everyday life also, right? So in the beginning, it was very different. Now, it seems like, I know that more than half the students are female now in architecture.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Now, how many get licensed? That's a different story. But the field itself is so very, very different. I will say, and maybe I'll get hate mail for this, but...
no hate mail. Don't send hate mail.
And mind you, I'm 55, so different generation. As the generations are coming out, it's different. But I will say that on the whole, although... I mean, if you've seen The Incredibles, Edna Mode.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Edna Mode is the prototypical female architect. She's got the Le Corbusier glasses. She's a little bit upset with everybody about everything, and people are ridiculous. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of really successful women in my field are, I don't want to say masculine, but almost androgynous. Like it's very, very strict, it's certainly not long hair, skirt wearing, scarf wearing.
Right.
Even the way that I dress has always been very middle of the road, like not trying to go one way or the other kind of thing. And I will say that, so some of the really successful women are somewhat masculine, but a lot of us who are just normal women, like I would consider myself, although I will say that my husband's relatives from time to time is like, oh, is Dulcie still dressing like a guy? And I'm like, hey, I have button-down shirts,
Yeah.
no big deal.
I'm wearing clothes. What do you mean?
Clothes, yeah. Anyway, so I think that, for someone who's a regular female woman like I am, I do tend to be more emotional. So there are certain traits that are typically more feminine, and there are certain traits that are typically more masculine. And I have changed over the last decades as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
course.
if you want to be good at this job, you can't be reactive. You just have to always 1000% be solution focused. And you have to be the least disturbed person in the room. You have to let your clients flame out and know that you are the parent in that situation. And that takes some learning up to do. I'll tell you
Sure,
what.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like when I started, it was like, I did not have that. Not that I think I have thick skin. It's just maybe a different perspective,
Yeah.
Well,
Well, they don't teach you that stuff in architecture school, do
I'm
they?
not sure if it can be taught. Well, they do. They do in the sense that when you put your drawings up on the wall and people tear you apart publicly in front of other people, that'll learn you up.
Yeah.
You either stick with it or you don't.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Wow. So I'm sure this has happened. But have you had clients change their vision midway through a project? And if so, how did you adapt?
Well, I would say that one of the good things about our firm is that we are adaptive. I would say one of the bad things about our firm is that we are adaptive. And so it has its pluses and minuses. I am a go with the flow kind of girl. I just want my clients to be happy. Of course, I want them to have something beautiful.
Of course.
But in our firm, it's all about the architecture that tells your story. I am concerned with digging out the bits that make you who you are and then giving it to you in a way that you never thought was possible and beautiful, right? So if you change your mind, I'm going to go with you. Now, the problem, though, with that is that if it happens during construction, then you tend to exhaust a lot of your subs, and even to a certain extent, the design team. Because there is something weird that happens when people design things or they start on something. If the client switches their mind too many times, fatigue sets in, and a tiny bit of, people start to detach and dissociate
Yes.
a little bit.
And wish they were not at that site.
And I don't know what that is because everyone's still getting paid.
Right.
Everyone's still getting. Now, here's the other thing is that I make sure that when that happens, of course, we're getting paid hourly, because, you just have to go, okay, so today we're doing this, today we're doing that, today we're doing this. And if I find myself having design fatigue, I have to check myself because honestly, I have to think about it like it's a brand new project then.
Right.
But it's expensive. And you just have to, before anything gets going, it's my job to let the client know 100% we can do that. It is going to be expensive. Here's how it's going to be expensive. Do you still want to do that? Because
Right.
you just can't go with them and have them turn around and say, well, you never said it was going to blah, 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 blah. Right?
Managing expectations
100%.
again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Half of what we do in this business seems like it's just managing expectations.
Right. Right.
And if that's done poorly, everyone suffers.
Everyone.
Everyone suffers.
Yes.
So, I mean, kind of sticking with that theme, what's the craziest, design request or the wildest, like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did this that a client ever came to you with?
Man. See, now I wish I had a client that said, I want the floor to open up and there to be a slide that takes me down to a pool.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I've had clients that, smaller things like, but those sorts of things, well, like for instance, I'll tell you, so I have one client, okay, this is a prime example. She's modern, but likes craftsmen. He's medieval, but likes craftsmen. So I have to negotiate the world between modern craftsmen and medieval.
Wow.
Yes. So in that instance, there's a case for his armor or whatever. But on this one, there was a spiral stair that went up to a catwalk catbird seat that was like a 3.5-story event, right? And we figured out a way to have it work out with the zoning. But budget came through and then nixed it. You know what I mean? But and it went up past a 2 or 3 story library wall, things
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, sigh.
Yeah.
You know, especially we call them dead babies in my profession because that's what they feel like, you know, like something that you've designed. And in our case, we design them and now we do them like with virtual reality. So we do
Right.
them 3-dimensionally. We build the model 3-dimensionally in the computer. And now with Twin Motion, you can make that look so real. You can
Absolutely.
put your goggles on, in our office and walk around in your project. So when it gets that real and it looks so cool, you know, it's really hard.
Are you using Vision Pro for that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Vision Pro. I use
Or
Twin Motion
Oculus?
and then Twin Motion, and then we have it's HP, and it's called, I can't remember what the goggles are called, but it's, you know, I've only had 2 clients do it so far.
Interesting.
And you know what's also interesting is that the guys are the ones that are tripped out by it. You know, they're like, "Oh man, this is so cool," you know, and the women are like, "Yeah, that's fine. I can
Yeah.
tell on the screen.
Sure. So
I don't need to put the goggles
yeah,
on." Yeah.
do you have to kind of like follow them around as they walk through so they don't stumble over your bookcases and stuff?
Most of the time, we have these little handles with them. So most of the time, you just put them in a certain area, and they don't walk. There's a handle that they press a button, and it makes
They
their
advance
avatar advance.
I see.
You know, and they look up around and do all that stuff. But
Right.
yeah, no, we don't have like a room, a
Yeah.
VR room.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen all these, you know, blooper videos or whatever of, you know, the kid playing video games or whatever and then accidentally smacks grandma with the controller or something or runs headlong and falls off or something.
Oh, God. Poo,
But
poo, poo. Hope that doesn't happen in our office.
yeah. So yeah, it was really neat, you know, use of technology in a space that, I mean, I guess it fits. It sounds like, you know, VR glasses and a virtual environment that you've created is, you know, an application of that technology and architecture that, you know, that makes sense. But
Right.
I haven't heard anyone else say that they have technology like that in the office or utilizing it. So there you go. You're
Yeah.
A&D sticking out.
Well, we want to get to the place too where we can put it on the iPad so that you can take it to the site and you can stand on the site and do this, and so that you could see. We're not quite there yet, you know what I mean? But that would be the next step for us. I mean, listen, at our firm, we never want to hear you say, "Oh, is that what that's supposed to look like?"
Right. Yeah. Again,
We want everyone to know up front what it's going to look like so that you get a proper cost, you know, for the
Yeah.
thing that it's going to look like.
managing expectations.
100%.
Yet again.
Yes, yes.
So, given your emphasis on transformative architecture, how would you approach a rebuild differently from a new build?
Well, I mean, the way I'm not sure that it has to do with transformative. Transformative would be, you know, if there's something existing and we're going to transform it into something else. With a rebuild, like in case of a fire, there's hardly anything there, right? I mean, there might be a fireplace or foundation or whatever. Transformative in the sense that what's happening is, I'm sure that if those people want to stay, this is their opportunity to change things and make them the way they always dreamed about. Or maybe they had a couple of things that worked for them at one point, but don't work for them anymore at this stage in their life.
Right.
So transformative, I mean, it's no different for us from any other project, which is we are trying to extract out of you what your dreams are, what your visions are, and the things that'll make you feel mostly at home and inspired, or whatever it is that you want to be feeling about your home. So with a rebuild, I would say the thing that would make it different is just that with rebuilds, you're also dealing with a certain degree, depending on the person, you know, some trauma around it.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, and again, according to who the person is and where they fall, you know, in the whole finances of things, you know, some heartache around insurance and all of that stuff too. Now, there's plenty of people that I've already kind of dealt with or been interacting with that are financially so fortunate that they don't have to worry about that. But with a rebuild, not only are you dealing with an opportunity to do something wonderful, you're also dealing with an incredible amount of loss, you know? And that, depending on who the people are, affects the project a lot, you know?
Yeah, without doubt.
Yeah.
Without doubt. Yeah, a lot of trauma around the situation. And the Palisades and
Eaton.
the Pasadena, with the Eaton fire. We're still processing through all that, of
Right.
course, and everyone that was directly affected will, forever be affected by it, of course. But it'll take some time to kind of work through the emotions around losing everything, and then whether or not they're gonna move back and rebuild, and if they want to do the same or if they want to do something different,
Right.
use that opportunity. We've heard that many people who lost their home want to build back the exact same thing because they loved it that much. It was just perfect, and they want it the same. They don't want to change anything. They probably will end up changing a few little things, but
Right.
for the most part, having it back will probably kind of help to fill that hole, right, that the fire made, and getting back the thing that they lost as much as possible, right?
Discover why we're the most awarded home technology firm in the U.S. Our design-centric approach transforms your space with effortless control of lighting, motorized shades, audio-video, and more. Our friendly experts guide you every step of the way, no tech speak, just smart, stunning simplicity. We provide years of care from our award-winning service and support team. Experience technology that feels as good as it looks.
Shifting gears a little bit to, materials and structural and stuff like that. Are there any particular materials or, systems that you promote now or will promote to customers given, what you've learned over the years?
Well, I will tell you something fascinating is actually happening for architects as well as clients, and that is that there has been a struggle for the last 10 to 15 years with a lot of the very high hazard area requirements, whether they're from LADBS or LA County or Ventura County or whatever. There's all these all these restrictions that don't allow you to do things like rafter tails or attic vents, and some of these things seem maybe trivial, but they speak a lot to some of the styles. I mean, these are things that maybe the more traditional styles, like, the rafter tails and all that. Like you're saying, if someone wants exactly back what they had before and they had a Cape Cod type house, then it's going to be difficult. So, and there was a struggle with that before because it was like, oh man, they're going to make us box out the soffits, but now that we've experienced this, everyone's a little bit more open,
Sure.
to maybe styles and materials that they wouldn't have been open to before. Now, if you've heard me talk about what kind of architecture I like, that John Lautner is a huge concrete guy. And concrete is hard and industrial and cold, and I get that. And there's plenty of ways to line it with other things and warm it up and do all kinds of stuff like that. But I'm a huge concrete fan, absolutely huge concrete fan. And now concrete is in. It's like when
Yes,
you're a
it
curly-haired girl and in your 80s and you're like, woo, I don't have to try to straighten it anymore. You know what I mean? And then, so I feel like my material has its moment.
Its
what I
time
mean?
has arrived.
Yes, because there's something about concrete. I mean, I'm not in a minimalist kind of concrete way or a cold concrete, but there are so many like Futon Chang and Lautner and all these. There's so many sculptural things you can do with it. So I do think that now I've even lost the question at this point. What did you ask me? Just that did I see some materials? That was the question, right?
Yeah, materials that you've learned about over the years that you find interesting and useful and can be applied to newer projects that you're working on.
Right. So then there's a whole host of siding and like charred wood and all kinds of things now too. Now they're more expensive because they have to be imbued or kiln dried or, resin infused or whatever. But wood is not completely out. It's just that it has to be treated and it has to be dealt with in a different way. So between concrete, like, I don't know, it's like that's a Jerry Maguire, you had me at hello kind of thing. Like, so
Yeah.
I'm so psyched because people are open to it now. Most residential people were not open to doing concrete with their houses.
For sure.
And metal roofs and all that stuff.
Right.
And we are not into like cold spaces, you know what I mean? Warmth, we can do warm, but I'm so excited that, metal roofs, concrete, all these things are back and they actually are functional and helpful in a way that will provide people with safety now.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I agree. So kind of on that topic of, different styles, Spanish, Craftsman, the Cape Cod, et cetera. Do you think people will want to retain these styles in the context of the fires, or do you think they will be more open to doing a different style because that's what it really takes to get the amount of fire resiliency that's needed?
Well, I'll answer your question on two levels. One is it depends on the type of person. Okay. So if you are a homeowner and you care about aesthetics, but you are more concerned with the fire safety of your property, it'll make you far more open to a different style. But if your idea of home is embedded in some sort of childhood notion that still makes you smell the bread your mom used to make in the kitchen, you're going to be less open. You know what I mean? And you might want to move to another location where maybe your particular brand of home wouldn't pose a potential danger, So I would say that, yes, I think people are far more open, but if what lights your Christmas tree up, that's not going to change overnight just because of a safety consideration, unless if safety is like one of the most important things to you, then you probably don't, how much you like the aesthetics of it, you're going to still like the aesthetics of it, but you're probably going to be far more open to changing it.
Yeah. For sure. No, it makes sense. Well, in the context of, kind of what happened in January with the fires, is there anything that you want to talk about with regard to, rebuilding, or any, resources that you think homeowners, stakeholders, subcontractors, et cetera, might want to get access to, or, any other topic that you want to touch on?
100%. I mean, I know that there are a few different people that are giving seminars. So I just know of Crest Real Estate. They're phenomenal. And they have put together a couple of seminars that are incredibly informative, like amazingly informative. They're on YouTube. I wish I knew off the top of my head some sort of link I could give you verbally, but I think
we'll put it in the comments.
Yes, there we go. But no, Stephen and his brother Jason, and all the guys that work at Crest, they are so familiar with the coastal zone. Because there are layers to this whole thing, right?
Absolutely.
You could be in the Palisades, but be in the coastal zone. You could be in the Palisades and not be in the coastal zone. You could be in the Palisades, but not be in the coastal zone, but be in the hillside. Or maybe you're in the Santa Monica Mountains. And so there's all these different layers. Then there's what the state says you can do. There's what LA says you can do. And so I definitely think that if you're thinking of rebuilding, there's resources that you can go to for there. I know that right now, although I heard, and I don't know, but I heard that they just came up with a new rule about the basement, and I don't know what it is, but I think you can build like up to 110% of your existing square footage like that in the basement as well, or something. Please don't quote me on that. But they're still figuring it out. So as we go on here, they're still trying to figure out what the expediting process is, because of course they do want to provide an expedited permitting process for people that have gone through this.
Yep.
Now, having said that, in the beginning they said they were going to have a 30-day plan check. I can't even say that like with a straight face. That's adorable, and I hope it's true. I hope it's true. I think that it's a good goal. You know what I mean? And let's hope that actually happens. But I think people need to be prepared for, it's going to be a process. It's definitely going to be a process. And if you have somebody that it's an expert like that, again, what are we saying? We keep saying it over and over in this podcast, managing expectations. Exactly. Yeah. So if you have an expert on your case that knows all the ins and outs, that is definitely something that I would suggest, for the process of it. And then the rest of your question was?
That That's most of it.
Yeah.
I was basically, asking if there's anything else that,
That I would
you'd
say.
like to add. You talked about some resources. I think everybody knows the brothers over at Crest. And getting those guys lined up for you, I guess, is another matter now. I mean, get in line, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed, having you and your amazing, positive, upbeat energy on the show. And we'll wrap it up there if you don't have anything else to add. This has been a great conversation.
Like I said, the only other thing I would add was that, that phrase that actually my mother-in-law is the one that gave it to me when she said, you never know what the bad things will be good for. And the reason why I like that phrase is because it doesn't say that it was a plan or anything. It just says you never know what the bad things will be good for. It means that, yeah, it was bad. It doesn't say, oh, it's good really though. It says, no, it was a
Right.
bad thing,
Yeah.
But you never know what those bad things actually might be good for.
Well, it implies some optimism.
100%. So I'm actually kind of excited in some ways because there are things that are wrong with Southern California. There are things that are wrong with traffic patterns. There are things that are wrong with, energy usage and all of that. And this is an opportunity. I mean, I know I'm sounding altruistic here, maybe a little bit too Pollyanna-ish, but as far as like civic planning, all that stuff, this is an opportunity to rethink a lot of those things. It's a crack at the apple I don't think we're going to get again for a long time. And yes, is it on the back of something absolutely horrific? Yes, it is.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I haven't heard it articulated quite that way yet. So I appreciate that outlook, and thank you again for coming in. I really
Thank you
appreciate
for
the
having
time.
me.
All right, I look forward to continuing to work with you.
All right.
All right.